Hello, gentlemen. Can you hear me? This should be quite interesting. I am currently live. Oh my goodness, wow. Well, my upload speed instantly is vastly faster than it was previously. Okay. Dropped frames, 0. Steady upload at 34... No, now it's up to 4,000. Okay. So you can hear me. Hello, JK. Hello, Eureka. Hello, Porian. Please tell me if there are any, like, stutters or anything. I am currently looking at my OBS settings. It's currently saying that my internet's pretty good. Consistently, it very briefly dropped down to about 2,500 kilobytes a second of upload speed on OBS. Now it's pretty consistent at around 3,500. It jumps up every so often to about 4,000. Basically, it's telling me minimum 3-bar signal, but it's a pretty consistent 4-bar signal. And now it just dropped right down to 2,000, okay. Yeah, the first couple of minutes of this stream is literally going to be nothing but a test to see if anything horrible goes wrong. Or any disasters happen. I'm gonna have a drink of water too. So please do tell me if anything terrible happens. That is fascinating. Looking at the numbers, Chad, what do they mean? Okay. I have not got my VPN on. Good. Excellent. A test, but I didn't study. Haha. You do cut out when it drops. Okay. Alright, well, I suppose I'll have to listen back to myself and see how bad that goes. Audio, at least? That's interesting. That's weird. No, it might... I literally just stopped speaking for, like, 20 seconds or so. I did just stop speaking, because I was focusing on the thing going up and down quite a bit. So that might have been why I cut out for a moment. Look at the funny numbers. I'm looking at the funny numbers. But yes, it seems as if, like... Yeah, nothing is exploding just yet, amazingly enough. I picked a great week to be off the internet, you know. Because the day... Was it a day before or something? No, it was a little bit before then. It was a little bit. So my internet was not terminated when the Sweet Baby Inc. and Gamergate 2.0 kicked off. But... yeah, like 3 or 4 days afterwards, my internet was cut off, and so I have not been able to keep up with that kind of stuff for a long time. And the stuff that has been going on last week has just blown my mind completely. The level of shenanigans that have been going on in the gaming community, even in the VTuber community. I mean, at least Selene didn't graduate, or we didn't have another Selene situation while I was offline, so that's good. That's good at the very least. But there is an awful lot to talk about. Did the Starlink plug come with progress? No, it did not. No, it did not. I have not ordered the PIP programming socks yet. I mean, they do look pretty comfortable, I will admit, but, and to be honest, do you have any idea how cold it gets out in this shed in winter? Have you any idea how cold it is? Because my feet are on a wooden floor, okay? My feet are on a wooden floor that is covered by about 1 centimeter thick carpet tiles. And also the shed floor is about 1 foot off the ground. So the wind, whenever it gets high wind, the wind whistles underneath this shed like mad. And so it takes the heat out of the top of the shed is actually very well insulated. The roof is quite thickly insulated with I have, what would you even call it, like reflective sheeting, and you can really tell how good the reflective sheeting is because when it snows, for example, if there's a frost or snow in the night, there is one panel of the sheeting over one part of my shed that I had to remove because it was getting condensation issues because the ventilation is not too brilliant. But if there is a frost in the middle of the night and I wake up, and I've had the heater on in here during the night, the insulation is good enough that after 8 hours or so, the patches of my shed roof that have insulation on them will still be frozen solid on the outside. Whereas the one part that does not have insulation on it, the ice will have all melted from the heat working its way through the wood to the outside. But like that's the problem because it also traps moisture. That's why I have like one exit point at the moment, which I am hopefully going to fix at some point. There's a whole ton of work that I could have been doing, but with the whole landlord situation and everything, it's been really annoying. There is no way those socks will provide any warmth. I mean, if you're... it's not every day that the Gate of Gamers gets a sequel. Oh, dear. Oh, there's been so much, guys. There is so much. I was literally reading something just a few minutes ago, and before stream started, like 20 minutes before stream started, some guy just made a massive thread on Twitter where he says, where his username was "Leave the Trans Kids Alone," I think. Let me actually just go back in because I just saw it and I thought I need to archive this immediately. So I used, here's a tip for you, a browser extension called, I don't have it on this one. Let me just check. Go full page. Let me look up on the web store. Go full page. Full page screen capture. This is a fantastic archiving tool because it lets you immediately turn an entire web page into a PNG or a PDF. And I have it installed as a browser extension. It works on Brave and Chrome. I have no idea if it works on other things. I will just pop it in chat because it genuinely is a fantastic archiving tool. So let me just pin that. So the moment I saw this Twitter thread, Ghost Archive is not very good when it comes to Twitter. Ghost Archive will randomly fail when trying to archive Twitter threads. I'm not sure why. I've got it to work maybe 50% of the time. And the weird thing is, it depends on the day. Some days, every single thing that I try to archive with Ghost Archive will work. And the next day, like just half the Twitter links just won't work, period. So I don't use Ghost Archive any longer for Twitter. I use this, the Go Full page. It does locally archive it as opposed to archiving it on someone like Ghost Archive, but I mean, that doesn't really matter. All right, Nijisanji Ian's core audience of Twitter men Heras targeted Scarl. Granted, I don't like her because reasons, but still, why did you like her, Danny D? I mean, I know she is kind of a bit of a coomer, but, you know, I quite like Scarl, at least. Her design is pretty top tier. She seems a bit of a silly, ditzy girl. She's quite cute IRL too, so, you know, I don't hate her. I mean, she seems to... I would really love to know how she feels, honestly, about everything. I think that she's very unfortunately caught in a very bad, awkward situation. Also, I apologize. Let me just get this out of the way. I'll just get that crinkly piece of plastic out the way so I can have my grapes. My lovely grapes. My lovely room temperature grapes. That's so annoying. Another great thing about this shed is that if I don't have my heater on, it's cool enough that anything that I bring out here to eat stays nice and cold. Like, for example, I've just brought these rather nice seedless grapes in, which are a great food when I'm doing streaming. And I've left them indoors, and the trouble is they're now room temperature, and I don't actually want to eat them. I hate room temperature grapes, whereas if I leave them out here for like an hour or two, then they're going to be nice and chilled, which I really enjoy. Isn't she Latinx? No, I don't think she's Latinx. I mean, I don't think she's Latino. No, she's definitely not, actually, because like we know her, we know what she looks like in real life, and she is a very cute Asian woman. Like, she looks absolutely nothing like her character design, but at the same time, she's a very, very cute Asian woman. Like, she has no reason to hide her face. That is an absolute minimum 8 out of 10 girl right there. Let me just look at like my Twitter stuff. Okay, good. And we also seem to be doing pretty decently on the frame stuff. Scarl thing is that she want to be mommy, but turns out she's dork. Yeah, I mean, I really do wish that I think that that ironically, Scarl would be better off as an indie. That she would be, and I don't even mean that in terms of, oh, Nijisanji is a terrible company and she should just go indie because, you know, that would be the better option. No, I think that she actually has a personality that is better suited to being an indie. It would be really cute and fun to watch her. I can't believe I just said that. God damn it. It would be really fun to watch her interact with some of the lower CCV crazy tubers that I like and follow, because I think seeing them all get together and like mess around, she seems to have that kind of energy, the same kind of energy, a little bit like people like Mikan and Koinu. I can't remember her full name. Like those kind of people have. Like, she seems to have a good personality, and she's wasted in Nijisanji. Sorry, she's just completely wasted. That's not where she should be. She doesn't fit into the corporate structure. And I mean, look at this thing she did. Who I can't even remember. This is how much Nijisanji males live in my head. Okay, that I can't even remember which one of was it the one with mauve hair or something. The one that there was leaked DMs between her and him. And she had that really awkward collab with him. She might get swarmed by the Hode. That's a possibility, I suppose. But I mean, they kind of live in their own disgusting bubble, and we don't need to think about them. Hello, HTTN, Hutton. How do I pronounce your name? Is it HTTN or Hutton? Hutton. Aster. Oh, yes, Aster. Yes, that particular brand of disgusting femboy. Good grief, that was the most awkward thing ever. And apparently Uki is back too, because good grief, why not? Speaking of Nijisanji, I thought that would be a good segue, assuming I can find the damn tab, because I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 20, 25 tabs open right now, and literally all of them are like major articles or huge detailed things. So there is a lot to get through tonight. I probably am not going to get through not even a quarter of it, I would say. But I already, god damn it, I really feel good being back, guys. I really do feel good being back. I feel like before going anything else, I would say that I had a very interesting time last week. It is hard to describe, because I feel as if I am living in a world where the majority of my personal experiences are almost impossible to explain to people that are younger than myself. And I know a decent number of you in my audience right now are at least as old as I am, because remember, I'm 31. But I mean, I would say in a way I'm a bit older technically because of the way that I've lived my life, because until I had to deal with dial-up until the mid-2000s, like 2010, I believe, was around the time that I was still on dial-up back then. I was still using dial-up around 2011 or 2012. Because, as you've read probably in the thread on the forum, my house is in a location where there is quite literally no Wi-Fi coverage of any sort whatsoever. There is no mobile coverage, there is no Wi-Fi coverage, and that's just complete and total. Like, the terrain literally prevents it. The UK debuff is real. I live in Ireland, remember? I live in rural Ireland, and I don't even live that far away from civilization, but it's just the fact that, like, of the 99% of the world or of Ireland that has broadband access, I am the 1% that doesn't. And so we had to rely on dial-up until 2012 or so. And I got the internet, some form of broadband. I don't mean broadband, I mean like Wi-Fi internet, by buying I think it was a Dell or something X420 laptop. I love that thing. I goddamn love that thing. I want to see if I can actually look it up. This is bringing me back. A Dell X420 laptop. Does this thing still exist in any capacity? The XPS 420. No, let me see. No, that's not it. I don't think that's it. It's a very old laptop right now. It's like nearly 10 years old. I think it's XPS. Or it might be. No, that's... oh, yes, it is. This is the one. Dell XPS 420 Gorgeous Media Monster. Is this it? I can't find an easy image of it, which is very irritating. I'm not sure, but it's a Blu-ray writer. No, that's not the thing. That's not the thing. But anyway, the main advantage of this laptop was its 9-hour battery life. So what I used to do was, you see, there is a cliff not far from our house, and that cliff is the only place for miles in any direction where a Wi-Fi signal can be reliably found. And so every night, because, you know, my entire social circle was in America, I used to take this laptop with its battery, and I used to climb up this cliff at night in the dark. And I used to sit out under the stars, and I used to just use this laptop. Dell reuses model numbers quite frequently, and it can be a pain to find old stuff. Armored glass cannon, 9-hour battery life. Wow, yeah, this thing was amazing. Like, this is what people don't remember about how technology used to be, is that flip phones and so on could go for like days and days on a single battery charge. Is that the battery technology we have today is a minimum of 10 years behind where the technology curve actually is. Like, I am astonished when my phone battery goes down so fast. And I've got like a 2016 a phone. So I've got an Obama phone, literally, still, a mobile phone. But even that drains very fast, and I hate it. I despise it. I remember having access to things like Game Boy Advance, where a Game Boy Advance could run for something like 30 or 40 hours on a single battery charge, at least, perhaps even more. Like, so long that it would be, that when I had a Game Boy Advance, which was the only mobile gaming device that I had for years, I could just use it for days or weeks at a time, like a couple of hours every day, and I didn't need to charge it. I just exchanged the batteries every so often. And I really wish that we could go back to that, because I hate how powerful things are at the expense of usability. Because I think also for Battlefield Classic, like the classic Battlefront and the Star Wars Battlefront, the classic Star Wars Battlefront games have just been re-released, and people are already complaining because, like, Star Wars Battlefront 2 could run on this old laptop, and I used to enjoy that game quite a lot. That's how I played it on multiplayer. Game Boy rechargeable batteries used to have cadmium in it, okay. And the game used to be, Star Wars Battlefront 2, when it first came out, was one of the largest games for PC that I had at the time. It was something like 16 gigabytes. And the original game was something like 10 gigabytes or so when it got a PC release. So put together, these would be, say, let's be extremely generous and say that they would be 30 megabytes packaged together. For some reason, Star Wars Battlefront, the classic games, is over 100 gigabytes on re-release. And a whole lot of people have been commenting on how game developers have just completely forgotten how to compress or optimize absolutely anything. And I used to play Neverwinter Nights, the BioWare RPG, and that was designed for dial-up. And I can't find it any longer, but Neverwinter Nights was a fully 3D game with servers that could support up to 70 people at a time in the same area. And it was like a real-time game, not a turn-based game, a real-time multiplayer game that could support 70 players at a time in a single area on non-dedicated servers. And you could play that on dial-up. You could play Neverwinter Nights on dial-up, and that's why I have over something like 8,000 hours into that game from my dial-up days alone, because it could run on a 24K connection. I had 64K. I was really living it up. But Neverwinter Nights could run on a 24K multi-internet connection, a 3D multiplayer game on a 24K internet connection with like 5 or 6 people in a party. You could play that and fine. No lag, no latency, no issues at all. and it was so incredibly optimized, and there were entire articles written about how optimized it was, because it basically, the amount of transactions it makes between you and the server, it was actually really funny, because before they released, goodness me, I'm going down nostalgia, I'm literally having a nostalgia-gasm thinking about this right now, unironically. I love those days so much. Neverwinter Nights, because it didn't have dedicated servers, and because it was like peer-to-peer networking, and because it was so heavily optimized, the game ran basically everything on your PC, as opposed, the amount of data transaction between you and the server was very limited, and it allowed you to do really funny things, really funny, crazy things. You could hack that game in so many beautiful ways. Like, it got an enhanced edition that fixed an awful lot of these things, but I just so remember being able to do stuff like import items from single player into multiplayer, because the game would literally just accept files from your hard drive and download them onto the server as raw text and just implement them into the server files for things like character creation and so on. So there were ways to trick the server browser into accepting a character from a single player game into a multiplayer session, and it was completely unfixable. Like, there was nothing a server owner could do to stop you. It was just so much fun to, like, go into. And remember, this is a game with a tool set that let you design custom assets and everything. And it was just so beautiful. It was just so much fun. I mean, oh my goodness, I was so happy in those days when you could just go into a game and know that you could do absolutely anything in it, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop you. Oh, I'm sorry. That was the perfect game to play as a teenager, because it just, once I got that, it was, and the story of how I even managed to learn those tricks was so hilarious too, because dial-up has a really weird quirk in that your IP address is really strange on a dial-up connection. And for some very strange reason, when I played Neverwinter Nights on a dial-up connection, my IP address would be read by the server as being connected to multiple different player accounts. And there was this one other player. I mean, you know him as Alex. He's like the guy that hangs out in my server, the guy that I gave admin privileges to when I had to leave, like, because we've been friends for 20 years. He's the only person aside from, well, one or two who I absolutely trust. Like, he was an extremely good NWN player, and he was also a very good PvPer, and he was a disruptive kind of guy. He liked to go into places and disrupt, like, the organizational structure of guilds and so on. He was great at that, because, like, he really hated the status quo, and he really hated all of the, I mean, so did I. But anyway, for some bizarre reason, our IPs, because he is in America and I was in Ireland, and yet just about every server that we joined and played together, his IP would register as mine. And so it became this giant thing. It became this giant thing within the NWN community that me and Alex were the same person. And I was never as good of a player as him in any capacity, but the thing was, he was a very good politicist. He was a very political role player. He could do really funny things, like turn people against each other, in roleplay and everything. Like, he was great, and he's literally like a lawyer type dude. Well, he is an economist and a claims adjuster in insurance businesses right now. So he spends like 6 hours of his working day negotiating between people on the internet, and he developed a lot of those skills. Unironically, I think that he developed a large number of those negotiating skills by messing around in political role-playing scenarios in Neverwinter Nights servers, and that was just amazing. So there was this weird boogeyman story going along in the NWN community that we were the same person, and that we were running like loads of different alt accounts, to the point where my player name in Neverwinter Nights became this kind of meme within the community, that whenever anything bad happened in a server, like, they would just say, oh, it's Proctor Zakharov, it's that guy, he's at it again, he's got another alt up and running, he's got another alt, and he's just messing around with things. And I was doing nothing, literally nothing. And, you know, after like a year or two of this happening, I was doing some stuff as well, but like not to the same level as him. I was actually contacted out of the blue. This was on Xfire, by the way. This was Xfire. I got this random friend request on Xfire. And it was this guy who said to me, "Hey, I am the leader of the most dedicated band of Neverwinter Nights trolls. So, and I think your work is amazing. I have heard so many stories about your trolling activities with all those alt accounts and so on. I would really love to invite you into my trolling Xfire group, where we have all these spare CD keys that we use on alt accounts, and also this is like a PDF of all the engine exploits in Neverwinter Nights that we know about." So that was how I learned all the tricks of the engine, was by literally just running dial-up and having an IP address that was just randomly reassigned by the servers for some reason to other players, and it got me this weird mythical reputation as a hacker and an exploiter, to the point where the guys who were actually interested in exploiting the game engine contacted me and said, "Hey, you're a great guy. Here's all of our tools. Have fun." It was unironically one of the greatest moments of my life. Oh, sorry, I need to drink water. Oh dear, it's the simple things in life. This is why I remember the old internet so fondly. They didn't know you used dial-up. Yeah, it was just amazing. It was just hilarious. Like, you couldn't. It's the thing with dial-up is that, yeah, this stuff is wild. Here's the thing, that you couldn't IP ban me, because every time you IP banned me, all I needed to do was plug and unplug my router, and I just got a new IP address, and I could immediately relog. And the thing was, people, you could ban by CD key as well. But the thing is that I was given all these extra CD keys because these guys had like 30 or 40 CD keys from old players that had left the game. And the thing about CD keys in NWN is they are stored in a plain text file on your computer. So all you needed to do if you were banned by CD key, which technically would remove your access to the account completely, was go to this text file and change out the CD key for another valid one, and you would immediately be able to log in again. Reality is often stranger than fiction, after all. Yeah, it was just a completely wild ride, and like, my memories from that time of my life are just so wonderful, because, you know, I was a pretty innocent person. It was a time before all the woke political nonsense and so on the internet, and I was just like a teenager messing around in a game I found fun, and this was all coincidental. And it was just such a good time. If I could teleport back in time to those days and just deal with all that nonsense, like having to walk up on a cliff every night in the freezing cold weather to use a laptop, or to stay at home and monitor because I could only use dial-up for 5 hours a day. Otherwise, the costs for it like went up by 5 times. So that was the problem. So to dole out my internet usage in 30-minute increments, I would go back in a heartbeat. I would relive those days in an eye blink, in a fraction of a second. You bet I would go back to those days. Proctor Zakharov wins by doing absolutely nothing. I mean, I did do a lot of stuff, I will admit. There is a reason why some people still react to the original player name that I had in those days with instinctive horror and disgust. But, I mean, at the same time, the stuff that I did compared to the stuff that people, for some reason, are convinced to this day that I did, it's a mountain versus a molehill. And it was all just paranoid and insane role players. Because remember, role players are all mentally ill. Every single role player, every single person that is capable of role playing on the internet is mentally ill. I'm absolutely convinced of that fact. It just depends on what particular version and flavor of mental illness that you have, if you are capable of role-playing. Like, mine is autism and ADHD. Alex's is also autism, but yeah, we are fortunate enough to have pretty high IQs and pretty solid and rational worldviews, whereas we were dealing with people whose entire social lives were literally, they were obese, like 330-pound neckbeards role-playing as, hot lesbian drow elves on servers and stuff. So I mean, it was just such a feast of content for people who had just enough intelligence to really finagle and mess around with people, and it was just so beautiful. It was such an innocent time. It was because you weren't messing with people because you hated their political ideology. You weren't messing with them because they wanted to chop off children's penises or anything like that. They were just like, these people are really sad sacks of nonsense whose only pleasure in life is masturbating to very crudely rendered 3D polygons using sex mods in a server. And it's just fun to mess with them, okay? There's a purity in that kind of trolling, and I will never regret the kind of stuff that I got up to then. Somehow nothing has changed on that front. It has gotten worse. It has gotten worse, I will say, because I mean, at the very least, if you are a fat neckbeard and you are role-playing as a big titty anime woman online, at the very least, you have your mental illness like confined to that avatar. Whereas since then, the problem is that society has conspired to convince these kinds of people that they're not sad sacks or anything. Like, they don't have to improve or anything. They are actually beautiful trans lesbian souls in themselves, and it is the responsibility of society itself to change in order for everyday people to recognize what wonderful, amazing, beautiful women they actually are on the inside. And if they get called fat losers or anything, well, their enemies are just bigots, and they are ontologically evil, and everything you do to them is automatically justified, and all this kind of absolute nonsense. So you can't save these people. You can't save these people. You have your genitals still between your legs. Yeah, basically. Also, I realized that it's top chat again. I really despise how every time I restart OBS or start a new stream, I have to manually set it to live chat instead of top chat. I apologize if I've missed any messages because of that. Oh dear, less than 20 minutes in and I'm already ranting to the point that my throat's starting to hurt. We've already tangented. We haven't even started on the stuff that I wanted to talk about, but yeah, it is really nice to be back again. It really is nice. And like, I've been live streaming for it's been 30 minutes, blimey. 30 minutes so far, and it seems like Starlink is perfectly fine. Like, if anybody has gotten any dropped frames or stutters or anything like that, then please just tell me immediately in chat, because I do want full feedback as to how things are going. But I mean, I've got 48 CCV at the moment, so it's quite obvious that people aren't leaving because the stream quality is terrible, which is, pretty good for me. Damn, I missed this. I really did miss this. But I didn't even, it is buffering for me. It sometimes buffers for everybody. Like, when I watch, sorry, 1 second. 1 nanosecond, please. When I watch Busujima Bibi, her stream sometimes buffers for me because her internet isn't brilliant, and she's in Peru as well. So I can deal with some buffering. Connection is actually way better than it was before. Yeah, the thing is that I only have something like 50 milliseconds of ping at the moment, compared to a minimum of 100 milliseconds of ping on the previous stream. Also, Porian, you are in Europe, aren't you? I forget. Aren't you like Finnish or something, Porian? I forget. Whereas Arclight, where do you live, Arclight, if you don't mind? Like, you don't have to say the country or anything, just like the continent, because I would assume that that your location plays a pretty major part in how effectively you receive this stream, because remember, I'm streaming from Ireland, so if you're getting my connection from America, then you're automatically going to have a little bit of extra buffer time no matter what. Whereas if somebody in Europe is watching me, I've no doubt that they are going to be getting my stream a lot faster. Close enough. Look, all those countries kind of blend together in my head, I'm afraid. Top chat hate. This is a bottom chat. Is that a self-report, Luminous? Are you a bottom? Australia, I really know that it's going. I mean, if you're in Australia, you are quite literally as far away from me as it is physically possible to get on the globe. So I would not be surprised if it was buffering a bit for you, even if I had like fiber optic cable, because that's like an extra few thousand miles the signal has to travel. Pretty decent on my end Gulf Coast US with a VPN. VPNs are interesting. I use Proton VPN, which is really good, but I'm gonna close my eyes and actually tangent on this because I wanted to say this because I got distracted. But the week that I had away from the internet really changed my perspective because I've been used to, for about 7 or 8 years now, having the internet on 100% of the time, and no longer having access to the internet for a large part of the day, because when I was contacting people, I was going down to a neighbor's house and using a laptop again to get their internet. They were very kind and let me use their very well insulated and heated and geothermal heated office space, because they are both multi-millionaires. So that was very pleasant. That was very nice. But I realized after about 2 or 3 days of not having the internet. The first day of not having the internet was really unpleasant because I kept thinking to myself, what is going on? What is happening? What am I missing? You know, I'm not getting my alerts. I'm not getting my updates. I wonder what people on Discord are talking about. I wonder what's going on. And the second day I woke up and I felt very different. I felt genuinely relaxed. And I got out of bed and I went into my shed and I sat down at my computer and I realized, hey, there are anime that I have had downloaded for a year plus that I've never I have never got around to watching. Let's just watch that. And I loaded up Infinite Revias, which I watched the first 3 episodes of about a year or 2 ago. Now, Infinite Revias it's a sort of a mecha show. It does have a giant robot in it, but it's not so much the focus. And I sat down and I watched something like 10 episodes of Infinite Revias in a row, and I was absolutely captivated. I thought it was a good show for the first 3 episodes, but then I had just been distracted. I was like, you know what, I'd like to watch more, but, stuff is going on. And so I watched 10 episodes of Infinite Revias in a row, and it was amazing. And afterwards, I just sat there and I thought to myself for a good 20 or 30 minutes, what made this show really good? What made this show great? I really like how the characters are. The action is good. You know, this nuance, I liked the way that this stuff interplayed throughout different episodes. I like the way the characters are. And I realized I had not had, because of the internet and because I have ADHD, so I really suffer from distractions. The lack of those distractions allowed me to be introspective about something I had just absorbed in a way that I had not been for over a decade at that point, honestly. And I was just like, wow, this is genuinely a completely altered state of being. I would say the state of mind that I was in when I didn't have the internet was as different from the state of mind I had when I had internet as taking LSD would be. It's that different. The perspective, the thoughts that I was having, what was taking my attention, the things that were bringing me satisfaction. Pardon me. And I remember about a day or so after I came back to the internet, seeing on Twitter a VTuber made a tweet and they were saying, help, I have ADHD, I'm not medicated and I can't do anything. I can't stream, I can't focus. What do I do? Please tell me, there's got to be a way. And I just replied to them, just turn off the internet. Like, just load up, say, an art program, because they were an artist. And they said, I can't draw, I can't get art done. Have you ever taken LSD, Proctor? No, I haven't. No, I have not. But I don't claim that it's exactly the same as taking LSD, but it felt a similar experience. It was such a different experience. I just said to them, what you do is you open an art program and then you turn off the internet. You have to get your brain into a state, because your brain, when you're ADHD, your brain is automatically looking for the most optimized and fast way to get a dopamine hit, basically. If there is something that will take your attention and it's very quick and it's very easy, that's why Twitter is such a dangerous thing for ADHD people. Is that because it supplies dopamine and it's just instant. You just scroll down, you see something you like, you scroll down. You see something you like, you scroll down. Where is the next dopamine hit? You scroll down. And it's one click of a button. It's one turn of a mouse wheel. And there's something new. There's something interesting. And so you can't stop, because your brain won't let you stop. And your brain is just like, why would you want to do something more complicated? Why would you want to, like, it gets to the point where I can sit here and I think I would really love to draw. I would really love to, like, design stuff in Inkscape and so on. And yet my brain is sitting there going, why? Literally opening the application will take too long. The 5 seconds you have to spend looking at your start menu to click on the Inkscape icon, and the extra 10 seconds it takes to select the presets so that you open up an Inkscape window. You could have looked at 5 more tweets, guy. You could have looked at 5 more tweets. So why bother? Why bother? Just scroll down a bit more. Just scroll down. And it's impossible to describe to a neurotypical person how that feels. You cannot explain it to somebody, because people go, oh, you're an addict. Well, just stop. Like, just stop. People don't understand what a grip it has on your mind, and you don't understand it until it's gone. And I kind of have to immerse myself, because there is so much stuff to catch up on. I have to immerse myself back onto the internet for a few days at least, but I think maybe Friday, maybe tomorrow, maybe during the weekend or whatever, I'm just going to turn off the internet again. I'm going to turn it off for like 5 or 6 hours, and I'm going to try and get back to that headspace where I have that ability to spread out my thoughts and focus on things that, without that persistent sensation within my brain at the back of my head that I'm missing something at all times. It's scary how it makes people addicted to Twitter. Yeah. I mean, again, I consider myself, for somebody who has ADHD, fairly a non-addictive person. But even so, the pressure it exerts on my psyche is unbelievable. And the just being able to turn it off it's delightful. It really is delightful. It really is delightful. Arclight, are you the kitten lad? No, he's the Discord puppy, okay? Remember, Grant is the Discord puppy. He is not a kitten, he's the Discord puppy. But yeah, that's really what I wanted to say with that little tangent, that if you ever get to a point where you feel the internet is overwhelming, just turn the damn thing off. Literally, unironically touch grass. Turn it off. And set a goal for yourself. I'm going to go an hour without the internet. I'm going to go 2 hours without the internet. I'm going to go 3 hours. And I think you'd be amazed how much it changes your outlook. And I really, although I hate my landlords for being such absolute arsewipes that they cut off the internet when they got back, at the same time, I am genuinely grateful for them for the amount of time I was able to spend away from the internet, because I was getting pretty stressed out before then. But having that taken away from me, I feel far better now. Far, far better now that I've had a week or so away from the internet for the most part. Internet detox is unironically amazing therapy, especially if you live in the countryside and you can. Thank you, Trill,
WB. Thank you, Papamus.
Oh, I forgot I had TTS enabled. Thank you very much, Trill, for the $15. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. I always feel that I always hear that alert, and I think a bird has escaped in my room. Yeah, sorry guys. Sorry. I've suddenly just stopped talking, but It's weird. I feel as if all this must be what parasociality feels like, because I feel as if all is right in the world. Let me just adjust my microphone a tiny bit. There we go. I feel as if all is right in the world now that I'm back to streaming. This feels bizarre. This feels bizarre, but it does feel good. Anyway, let me actually try and accomplish things, because one of the fun things that I wanted to cover just briefly and highlight, because it's fun, let me just also do the thing that I promised that I would do, and link the relevant resource in the chat itself. Here we go. Pardon me, I apologize. Is that Nijisanji English has released its financial results for Q3. And can you notice anything? This is from October to December of 2023. This is, wait, what did I do? Open image. Wait, is that just the same thing? Oh, I see. There we go. And as you can see, look at that. Oh. A 40%, a minus 40% year-on-year drop. I just got home and Proctor is talking about feeling parasocial. How long until he starts grooming Chad? Excuse me, I'm in a Fox Girls DMs. I don't need to groom any of you. But yeah, this is pretty much a negligible impact right here. Can you see? Obligatory yeah, Parian, you said it literally just as I did. Obligatory negligible impact. That is quite impressive. They are down by, yep, almost exactly 40%, looking at the numbers. And as it pointed out, as the guy in the thread pointed out, sorry, I really hate how this is. This is from October to December, so this is before Selen was terminated, okay? This is not Q4. This is not Q4 financials. So this is going to go down again like a stone. In fact, let me just look up any color stock, like any color value. So they are currently at 3,140 yen. And they went down again. Previous close, 3,165. So let's go to the 1 month. I don't have this on screen, by the way. So 1 month rolling average. So it spiked at around 3,400 and then it went back down to 3,100. So any color stock is still significantly lower than it used to be, which is really good to see. If I'm reading right, the downfall pretty much starts at the cancellation of the AR Live last year. Yeah, that's a good point, actually, because I remember having the announcement about the cancellation of AR Live. I would be really curious. This would be really interesting for people to do, because I don't think the cancellation of AR Live by itself was a massive blow to the company, but I do remember how an awful lot of talents were at that time complaining that they were really looking forward to AR Live, and there was... Sorry, I'm yawning. A bunch of commentary, maybe on alt accounts or whatever, I forget the full details. Basically, the livers were very upset about the cancellation of AR Live, and a lot of them had put a lot of effort into it. And I'm curious if people just stopped streaming as much afterwards, because, you know, when you have something like this happen, it's going to be pretty hard to maintain your schedule as normal. And we do know for a fact that Nijisanji has fairly loose... It's not like HoloLive, because we know that HoloLive's contract, at least it's very heavily implied, that HoloLive's contract has a minimum number of streaming hours, whereas I don't think that Nijisanji's contract does. Whereas, feel free to correct me, because I have not had time to watch Legal Mindset's full breakdown of the contract. In fact, here's a question. Did Legal Mindset ever release a PDF version or anything like that of the contract? Because I would love to read that rather than listen to his legal analysis, honestly, because it's a 4-hour damn stream, and caching it live would have been fun, but as a VOD, I don't really want to look at it, because he spends an awful lot of time talking to super chats and so on. It's just not the kind of content that, again, my ADHD brain is good at focusing on. And so I would be fascinated to know if Nijisanji, someone did. Azihara, if you could do me a massive favor and show me that, or if anyone could show me a PDF of that contract, I would be incredibly appreciative. Like, really appreciative. Someone on Reddit did, yeah, I could use a link to that. But I mean, like, no rush, no rush. So Nijisanji is definitely more chill overall. Someone pieced it together from screenshots. Okay, that makes more sense. But it would not surprise me if a bunch of livers just stopped streaming as much due to this. And so it might be interesting to compare like the amount of hours that Nijisanji EN livers were live before the AR concert compared to afterwards, and then cross-referencing it with the loss of Any Color financials. Because it would be hilarious if Any Color has just this toxic company culture that makes it so streamers just don't want to stream any longer. And I wouldn't blame them, to be honest. Like, even the people that have stuck by Nijisanji all along, you know, I don't blame them for being dispirited and downhearted. It's also hilarious that Elira Pandora has done nothing since that message announcement, which I find just cathartic in the whole, because I don't care if she's like the ultra mega like person in charge, the queen bitch behind the scenes. What she did with that message was just absolutely insane. So yeah, may she stay offline for a good long while. Her being the next graduation would be absolutely hilarious, because people have theorized that if she leaves, then her very close friends Enna and Millie will leave as well, because they want to keep in touch with her, which would be great. Total Niji death, guys. Total Niji death. I see no reason for any Elira graduation soon. That would be the delicious thing. Let me just adjust myself in my chair and have a grape, because they've cooled down enough. I love these sweet seedless grapes as much as my quail do. My quail absolutely love grapes. If my quail will quite happily each eat 4 grapes per day. And 4 grapes per day is about as big as they are as a quail itself. Elira is active on Twitter again, but not active on our YouTube, oddly enough. Lol. Hopefully she ends up like Artia, selling herself to crypto bros. Pardon me. I have no idea what happened to Artia. Good riddance. Liking Artia is the only thing I hold against Pippa. Because, my goodness, that woman was a queen bitch in every possible regard. Where was I? Yes. Okay, let me just go back to just chatting for 5 seconds while I try and figure out what I'm going to look at next, because, my goodness, there is a lot of stuff. There's so much sweet baby stuff. There's so much. Let me get my stuff in order. Here we are. Yes, this is what I wanted to look at. So, about 30 minutes before this stream, about an hour actually. About this hour, and do you really believe? I definitely do not believe in RTA in any way. But about 30 minutes before this stream started, I was on Twitter, as I am a lot nowadays. Thanks, Thrang. And I saw this tweet thread, which I will now put on screen, because this is the advantage of... Yes, this is the major advantage of having a go full page, because I was able to save this entire tweet thread. Link and info dump. Thank you very much, HTTN. I really appreciate that. I will pin that, in fact. Pin that to links and info dump. There we go. So as you can see, this charming individual, let me just zoom in a little bit. This is a PDF, by the way. It's basically an image. And yep, go away. Thank you. And this guy, trans kids are not a threat, leave them alone. So trans kids are not a threat, leave them alone, says thread. 20 years in games, 17 in the C-suite. So I'm well suited to say, these people, aka the Gamergate 2.0ers, blaming one consultancy for everything they don't like, are again demonstrating they know nothing about the subject they purport to be discussing. They are racist and sexist. Now, I don't know if you've been following how the anti-GG side has been the last fewer days. But basically, they have been pulling the full, we have done nothing wrong, we are open and inclusive in all events, we do not say nasty things about gamers, this is a complete lie, we are the ones being harassed in every possible way by these disgusting, alt-right racist Nazi chuds. So don't listen to them, all right? We will never say a bad word about these horrible alt-right racist Nazi chuds. We love gamers and all that kind of nonsense. And then this guy, who I didn't know who he was at first. But this is a very much mask-off statement. It never occurs to them that the reason nobody makes games for them was because nobody wanted to make these kinds of games. Nobody wants your money because no one wants you in their environment. Take it from someone most of whose job was figuring out ways to get rid of you. Trust and safety departments exist to get assholes out of the gaming environment. You end up creating them to get rid of assholes, because adult humans don't want to spend their leisure time with assholes. You're a gamer gator? F off, you goddamn child. And this one here, nobody wants your money, go spend it on anime porn. This was a reply. This didn't get all the replies to it, which is annoying, but it got most of the thread. This is a reply to Azihara. This is a reply to Azihara. Nobody wants your money, go spend it on anime porn. By the way, if you're effing crying about the fact I'm telling you to eat shit, think about why you're such a garbage person that the producer of Detective Pikachu thinks you are human garbage, and maybe work on being less shitty. You complain about bubbles, but you're living in the biggest one. You dorks sit around self-reinforcing that you're somehow not human garbage. Get your moms to give you more allowance and buy a clue. I have to say, I'm impressed with the one person who quote-tweeted the original thread and also screenshotted it in case I blocked him, so he could have forever proof that he is a dork, and no one intelligent agrees with him. I mean, I still blocked him because dork, etc. I mean, F would I know about making of games. And this is when I started looking into it and realized, oh my goodness, this guy has a very, very interesting history. So he says he's the producer of Detective Pikachu, as in the movie. So he was also in Bungie. Former Bungie legal executive. The company will never love you back, but if you let it, it'll kill you. And this also contracts to another thing that I'll look into in a minute. Among the workers affected by Bungie's round of layoffs last October was former Chief Legal Officer Don McGowan, who was the man heading the legal charge against cheat makers and serial harassers for the studio. It appears as if McGowan's firing was a call to arms, as he is now among those pushing for game devs to unionize in an interview. So this is the former chief legal officer for Bungie. Like their chief legal officer. And then we see he went on to work at the Pokemon Company, because... where is it? I don't think I actually have that tab open, which is really annoying. But yeah, though you can see it, this was the Pokemon Company's former chief lawyer. So this guy, Don McGowan, has been not just a lawyer for Bungie. He was a lawyer for Bungie in like the early 2000s, and he worked on Halo 3. So this guy has a massive pedigree. And then he was promoted up from that to being Pokemon's former chief lawyer for the Pokemon Company. So this guy has a massive pedigree. However, McGowan also appreciates that words are more challenging than action, and he encourages devs who are burnt out to not feel shame in taking a break, and rallies workers to brace for tough times. There's a lot of bad news going around right now, and there's no shame in leaving it for a while and coming back. Keep yourself sharp. If you think you want to come back, there's no shame in just leaving. The company will never love you back, but if you let it, it'll kill you. He talks about the power of a physical picket line, especially in a world where studios are making RTO. I don't know what RTO is. So this is an interesting article because this was in January of 2024. Now this was fascinating because this guy, there is no context for, because this is, yeah, Bungie studio hit by layoffs, delays of Destiny 2's final shape. So Destiny 2 developer Bungie is the latest PlayStation studio to have layoffs. Full scope isn't clear, but CEO Pete Parsons emailed the company this morning to say they'll be having a team meeting today to talk about some news today coming out of Bungie, as staff are informed. What does his comment say? He says, but because Bungie's problem lately has been overabundance of well-polished and timely content. So they had massive layoffs. Bungie had massive layoffs, and this guy, McGowan, was one of those people who was laid off. So I looked into it a little bit further, and here is a post from Kotaku in action. Bungie just nuked their DEI clubs and laid off more than 100 employees. Sources we spoke to pointed out that many of the Bungie employees who were laid off were beloved community leaders within the studio, including many who had spearheaded employee inclusion and support efforts. Several people we spoke to expressed anger at the layoff of Bungie General Counsel Don McGowan, who played a key role in Bungie winning a historic suit against a player who harassed Bungie developer. Others laid off included a noticeable number of members from Bungie's DE&I clubs, including CEO heads and co-heads of Pride at Bungie, Woman at Bungie, and Accessibility at Bungie. When combined with other recent resource cuts, these dismissals have led to fears these clubs might be shut down. And now let's go back. Do I have this guy's... Do I have this guy? No, I think I closed it down. We'll get to that in a moment. So this guy, who had this massive Twitter meltdown about Gamergate 2.0, is currently, he calls himself self-employed. Bungie is cutting the fat because the money has run out. Yeah, this guy was a... In a functional society, a lawyer would feel no need to have internet spats with our current number one... No shame in leaving, but your job won't be here when you come back. Have fun on your paid time off. Yeah, this guy is not a software developer or anything. He knows absolutely nothing about software development, clearly. But this guy was laid off because he was part of this DEI nonsense. And yes, Christopher Page, I have seen that announcement. Maybe I'll talk about it a bit later. I have not really looked into it too much myself because it is a Japanese-only thing. So this guy was laid off because he's part of this disgusting DEI hierarchy. And the funny thing is, again, that this is the proof. You can see this screenshot here. Former Bungie and the Pokemon Company lawyer defends Sweet Baby Inc., saying his job was to get rid of anti-woke gamers. And he has actually got a... Look, he's got a YouTube channel, or The Legal 500. And this is only a 2-minute 32 second clip, so I'm going to play it now. Also, if this ever goes down, if anybody cares enough, I have a record of this. I have this logged, by the way, so yeah, this isn't going away anytime soon. In fact, wow, his face is soft. Yeah, and this guy, actually, let me look it up. Let me look him up, because this guy has gone to seed. This guy has really gone to seed. Yeah, film producer... This is his LinkedIn page. Let me just... Yeah, this was something I had open as a tab before, but I have not... I closed it down again. This is his LinkedIn page. Look at his... Yeah, look at that profile image. Look at that image for a second. And just gaze at this man. Gaze at the man in this profile avatar. Just take him in for a moment or two. Sorry if that sounds vaguely homoerotic. And now, it's all of the soy he consumes. Yeah, this guy is like in his mid-50s too. Like, he's not a spring chicken any longer. Like, he's in his mid-50s. Let me just close that tab. And now let's listen to him talk right here. This is a great... let me just make sure my desktop audio is on. Yes, it is.
Diversity, to my mind, is a process. It's a thing you should always be keeping in the front of your mind and working towards, rather than an end state you want to reach.
anyone happen to remember Klaus Schwab and his The Great Reset book? Yeah, notice the time frame 2 years ago. So this was at the height of the whole, the pandemic it's forcing a great reset, but that's a good thing, okay? This is the time when we went from the Great Reset is a myth that is not going to happen, to the Great Reset is happening and it's a good thing. So this is one of those, the Great Reset is happening, but it's a good thing. Many levels of audio quality for this. Yeah, this is this guy is a very high up lawyer, and trust me, lawyers make a lot of money. This guy is probably very, very wealthy. So him having this shitty audio camera and everything, there's no excuse for that.
I see D&I inside the legal profession as a combination of helping establish pipelines for people who might not traditionally have been able to enter the profession, and working to get the perspectives of people who might not have necessarily always had access to be in a position to provide those perspectives. My work with respect to diversity and inclusion.
Do you see that audio glitch? Do you see that?
With respect to diversity and inclusion at Bungie has focused on a couple of different things. One is that we have a fairly robust of creating inclusion clubs. Bungie has 3 currently existing inclusion clubs, and we're about to create a 4th. I'm working on the creation of the 4th.
Yeah, so he just admits right there. He admits right there that this guy was instrumental in creating these 3 or 4 clubs, and then they were all cut in late 2023. Azahara, only pipeline this guy is establishing is the one he's taking out the arse. Did they sample Bruce Faulkner tracks in the background? I have no idea what you're talking about, I'm afraid. We're going to be moving from it's happening and it's a good thing to it never happened that you deserved it. Yeah, that's the next stage. In fact, I think we're already in that pretty much. So yeah, this guy is admitting that he has been an instrumental part of establishing all of the crap that like pride at Bungie, women at Bungie, accessibility at Bungie, pride. Yeah. So this is stuff that he was instrumental in creating by his own words.
The 3 that exist today are women at Bungie, black at Bungie, and trans at Bungie.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I hadn't watched this before. See, he literally says that just as I pause it.
I believe we might be one of the only video game studios that has an inclusion club like that for trans people. The 4th is an accessibility group, which is the one that I'm focused on. So there's that. The second thing is discussions around the diversity and the diverse makeup of our providers of external counsel services. But one of the things I am looking at implementing, and I've talked to the people in my department about, is the idea of implementing a policy around asking our outside counsel that at least one person on all of our practice teams be from a diverse background. And when I say from a diverse background, to me that means diversity of gender and gender identity.
Okay, let's listen to that again.
To me that means on all of our practice teams be from a diverse background, around asking our outside counsel.
Notice the words he says there. Outside counsel. Outside counsel. So he's talking about a group that is outside Bungie, that is giving them instructions to have more diverse
that
groups.
At least one person on all of our practice teams
How interesting.
Be from a diverse background. And when I say from a diverse background, to me that means diversity of gender and gender identity, diversity of race, or to the extent that that's something that can be determined, diversity of opportunity. And diversity of opportunity means, is this a person who might have been, the first person in their family to have become a lawyer, to have gotten higher education, etc.
In other words, what he's saying there is, my job is to hire people who are incompetent and useless, who would have been otherwise passed over for more qualified people in a meritocracy. That's my job. So, if you wonder why Destiny's content has gone down so much, why Bungie is such a terrible company, why Bungie is literally being reamed out. I remember when the Halo the Master Chief collection came out. and how that was terrible for years and years and years. The Master Chief Collection was the laughingstock of the entire video game industry because all they had to do was package up the existing Halo games, and do some basic touch-ups and release them, and yet they completely messed it up. Like, imagine that this guy has been going around in the background for all these years and doing this nonsense where he says, oh no, you can't hire that highly qualified industry professional because he's white. And this is the result. MCC wasn't by Bungie. I mean, MCC, well, Bungie is the one that sells it, as far as I'm aware. It's like he is chanting with prayers in front of the camera. I know, it's just so absurd to listen to these people talk, isn't it? It's just absolutely crazy. But again, going back to this. So this guy, again, look at his name. Trans kids are not a threat. Leave them alone. Now, as my own tweet commented, this guy has no evidence of being married. He has no children. And yet, he is, for some reason, obsessed with trans children. After decades, or at least, a minimum of a decade, working with the Pokemon Company, which targets children as its primary entertainment medium. It was the producer on Detective Pikachu, a children's movie. He worked with the Pokemon Company for years and years. Isn't there, like, something about people who are this vehemently against people looking into their personal details or anything like that when they say these kinds of things? I really can't think of what exactly thinks things could be hinting at here. I just don't know, but it's just such an interesting thing to notice, isn't it? We can notice things like this, can't we? Check his early life section. Suck on talking to Don.mp4. I don't know what you're talking about, Armored Glass Cannon. That has definitely not been anything that I've implied. I don't know why you would draw that conclusion. That's very strange of you. Let me just look through this. Yep, it's also, here's this article too, which I will just, the Park Place. How long is this article? Not too long. Yeah, this guy has more. Yeah, this is a more direct commentary about it. Once again, this is all archived. I have a complete archive of those tweets that he made. Former lawyer for Bungie and the Pokemon Company. That's just has admitted his job is to get rid of anti-woke gamers. McGowan made his comments using the X handle legal minimum, but previously identified himself in September 2022, writing, "My real name is trivially easy to locate, but just so we're clear, I am Don McGowan. I spent 12 whole years as the chief legal officer of Pokemon, and am now the general counsel of Bungie." McGowan responded to a thread by Kotaku journalist Alyssa Mercante, she's definitely a C word of some variety, that claims that Sweet Baby Inc., as well as herself, are being harassed. Of note, Mercante does not share that Sweet Baby Inc. employees Chris Kindred and Maya Kramer, as well as CEO Kim Belair, have launched multiple cancel campaigns against the Steam curator and its creator, Brazilian gamer Cabrutus Rambo. She makes no mention of the racist actions of past Sweet Baby Inc. employees or past racist comments made by Kim Belair. And that's all about Mercante. I don't really care about her. McGowan reacted to the thread with his own by accusing gamers of being sexist and racist. He wrote, "Thread," and we've already read that. Next, he made the absurd claim that video game developers at large no longer want to make games for gamers. Not only did he make that claim, but he also revealed his entire career was built around trying to get rid of gamers. He wrote, "And it never occurs to them that the reason nobody makes games for them was because nobody wanted to make these kinds of games. Nobody wants your money because no one wants you in their environment. Take it from someone whose I really hate this grammar. Take it from someone most of whose job was figuring out ways to get rid of you." I love here, Azihara, you're Azihara, you are now immortalized. You have been immortalized by this article, at least one article. Nobody wants your money, go spend it on anime porn. In fact, let me just go to Kersha's Discord, because somebody took a screenshot of that. Let me see if I can find it. Trouble is, this Discord is incredibly long. But somebody posted a screenshot of it. Come on, I can find it somewhere. It's definitely here. I need to preserve this. I need to preserve this. Here it is. Here it is. I found it. I found it, Azihara. I found it. Remember what Shakespeare said about lawyers? Wait, I just realized he's basically a commissar. Did the commissar get patched? So Azihara, congratulations on making it into at least an alternative media outlet. Also, stop being a coomer. That's for later. Where was I again? I've got lost in my tabs. Help! I'm lost with my tabs. Yep, here we are. Oh, this is an interesting part. McGowan then took a shot at former World of Warcraft team lead Mark Kern via ex-user Rami Ismail. Ismail is a Muslim activist and co-founder of VLambir. That has produced the mobile game Ridiculous Fishing, Luftrausers, and Nuclear Thought. I played Luftrausers. That was quite a good game. Ismail wrote, so the Gamergate ex-dev grifter is back claiming shit about forced diversity leading to funding, and let me tell you, not even once in my life have I worked on or with any title that had an easier timing getting funded because it was different, diverse, inclusive, or equitable. As always, Rami Ismail has nailed it. Yes, and what you don't seem to understand, Rami, is that you don't get funding easier because gamers don't want to buy your products. Next, he posted, by the way, if you're effing crying about the fact I'm telling you to eat shit, think about why you're such a person, and the producer of Detective Pikachu thinks you are human garbage. I love how he thinks that saying the producer of a 6.5 rated movie on IMDb that was targeted at like 6 to 8 year olds is an awesome own. Like, this is somehow an own. Nuclear Throne was good too, TBH. This is all just repeats of what he said. Is there any more commentary? This is interesting. McGowan shared an interview he did with Aftermath where he explained what he did at both Bungie and the Pokemon Company as a way of giving his opinion more authority. After that, he wrapped up his thread writing, what's the old rule about not showing tolerance for people who are themselves intolerant? That one. That's what you see in this thread of my responses. No, I'm not interested in debate. No, I don't care if you think I'm a bully. Get back to your effing lockers. This thread is giving my block finger a good workout. I'm ashamed that he did not block me. Finally, he concluded he doesn't want to hear the truth. Sure, dork, what you believe isn't true. What, people aren't allowed to disagree? Have at it, champ. I just don't care about your opinion, etc. What do you make of Don McGowan's comments? And if somebody with years and years of professional legal experience and professional legal training is saying these kinds of things on their public work Twitter, yeah, there's no hope for them. Sorry, there's no hope. This is the level of brain rot that these people have. And I just can't believe it, honestly. Everything this guy says has a weird feel to it. Yeah, this guy, again, this guy is at minimum in his very late 40s to early 50s. No, Stalker Goomer Goober! Detective Pikachu is taking you to prison! God. That's a good one, Parian. I really hate how good that is. These people, what confuses me is that all of these people are so infantile. They cannot explain or argue anything in a coherent manner. I wonder how successful he actually is. One of the richest lawyers in the US is a guy who only processes traffic tickets in the Houston area. Graduated law school with a C, actually fills a need. Yeah, that's not a bad commentary, actually. I mean, his professional experience with the Pokemon Company is primarily sending cease and desist letters to fan games. Like, this is the stop having fun guy. unironically the stop having fun guy. You can blame this man for the reason why stuff like the Pal World Pokemon mod was taken down. Actually, no, he wasn't in Pokemon at that time, but yeah, he has shut down multiple fan games and multiple stuff like that. So he is literally the stop having fun guy. And the amazing thing is he does not seem to understand the concept of media that is targeted at a certain demographic. And I can see why he is no longer at the Pokemon Company, and I can see why he was then fired from Bungie too. I thought it was the other way around. I thought it was that he went from Bungie to being, because I think he does have some level of experience with Bungie from Halo 3, because that's what some of his the stuff that I looked up on him that I don't have right now was saying. But it could be that he worked for Bungie in some capacity in the early 2000s, and then he was hired by the Pokemon Company, and then he went back to Bungie later on. Legit what he does, I don't know much about him. Yeah, that's essentially what he does. He has an article out there that has been cited by other people that is basically, a tell-all about what his work with the company, with the Pokemon Company actually was. That was what he did. He specifically targeted people who made fan games and so on, and just took them down. Let me have a look at me numbies very quickly. We seem to be doing rather good. This is the type of guy that doesn't let a father put an image of Spider-Man on his dead son's grave. That is a very good way to put it, Azuhara. That is a perfect way to put it. This is that kind of guy to begin with. And you can sense just how furious he was from all of this. Like, he is absolutely livid at all of this. And the thing is that as far as I know, he wasn't directly affected by any of this. Like, he threw himself into this arena entirely by himself. That he has had no real previous contact with, like, the GG stuff and so on. But what can you say? This guy's insane. He's mental. Let me close down this. I don't really need to look at this any longer. Yeah, oh, there was this as well, which was talking about Bungie, which was basically saying, yeah, Bungie is a soul-crushing place, because, again, why on earth would you work for a company that is... Oh, this is a fun part. This is a fun part. Former and current QA department members at Bungie tell us that in the last year, the team has seen increasing workloads and responsibilities, with more and more disciplinary actions taking place over seemingly minor infractions. They also perceive growing hostility from team and company leadership, including a meeting in which QA was said to be referred to by leaders as non-developers. In total, sources tell us that over 10% of Bungie's internal QA department was either fired or laid off between early October and early November, including both the reported layoffs and the departments leading up to them. That's very interesting. I do wonder if that had something to do with this, because, again, Bungie is definitely a paused company. Wanting so badly to be taken seriously and then constantly bringing up the children's film you produced half a decade ago is one hell of a move. Don't remind me that that was half a decade ago. Good grief. He's looking for employment by siding with the SBI people. I agree. Leeches. So, my impression from this Bungie, now I have a new perspective on this Bungie stuff, because, again, Bungie is a company that has allowed itself to be infiltrated by the woke mob to a very disturbing degree. So, it seems like these layoffs... I remember that Kirsha asked me about these as well. She asked, don't you think it's weird how these companies seem to be laying people off right now? Do you think it has anything to do with the whole DEI stuff that I've been talking about recently? And I said, maybe it could be. And this is pretty much retroactive confirmation of that in my eyes, that Bungie's CEOs who, actually stand to gain from the company making money went to look at their internal staff and their internal practices and realized, good grief, we have been infiltrated by a bunch of totally useless parties and groups, and we have high-level members of our company and legal department that are proactively telling us to hire useless people and to do things that are objectively not in the best interests of our... I think Bungie's publicly traded, of our publicly traded company. We need to get rid of all of these people immediately. And you can tell that being found out like this and being tossed out on his ear because of this has made this guy, Don Gowan, he is so incredibly angry about this. He is furious that his world has come crashing down because the forces of the market have just decided, you know what, we don't want you any longer. and nothing of value was lost. Unironically, nothing of value was lost. Isn't it beautiful to see physics in action? Excuse me 1 second, I need to blow my nose. What? Mute myself. Come on, mute, please. There we go. And I feel like this makes for a good segue into something that I have wanted to do for quite some time, which I will now be making a staple of my Wednesday streams, because it's just very, very relevant, because all of this has to do with economics fundamentally, is that these are a bunch of people who firmly believe that capitalism is not the way forward, is that they want as little to do with the methods and methodologies of capitalism as possible. Mind you, still pay them a very large amount of money though, that's not hypocritical at all. And I think this segues very nicely into this particular thing. Economics in one lesson, which I am going to be reading a single chapter of each Wednesday stream from now on. Well, not Wednesday because it's Thursday, but you know what I mean. Every midweek stream, shall we say. Because Economics in One Lesson is a book that Javier Milei, the new libertarian president of Argentina, has publicly recommended before, and I have read most of this book, and I have also read and listened to quite a bit of Thomas Sowell's works, and I can definitely tell very much that Thomas Sowell was inspired by people like Henry Hazlitt. And it's a fascinating book that I think is worth highlighting, because once you start understanding the same kind of principles as these economists do, it gives you a far better and more interesting perspective on how these Marxists and how these idiots think. And one of the fallacies they constantly commit is that they believe that the failures of their products are because of enemy action. For example, the evil harassing Gamergate assholes are making their products fail. Whereas in reality, the products that they have are failing simply because they are not good and because they are not produced under an economically sound model. And it's only once you understand economic principles that you can properly escape that bubble that they're in at the moment, and they just don't, because they don't believe that capitalism is a thing that works, whereas all the evidence says that, yeah, capitalism is a pretty good way of doing things. And that's why I like this book. So Economics in One Lesson, I'll read that first, and there's a whole bunch of different fallacies that Henry Hazlitt dismantles. And I should note that Henry Hazlitt was active in like the early when was he? I forget exactly, but Henry Hazlitt was like during the war years or so on. So this wasn't particularly late. This is not complicated. This is not cutting-edge modern economic theory, because cutting-edge modern economic theory is garbage and nonsense. But this stuff is the fundamentals of economics that has been understood for many decades, but unfortunately, for some bizarre reason, is no longer taught in schools. So I will go straight down to the first lesson, and I will begin to read so that you understand. I will also make commentary every so often. Before I do, please give me just one moment to eat a grape and also have a drink of water. What on earth is... Oh, sorry, I just saw something in Discord that was really funny. So let me just glance back at chat for a second. Yep. This book is an analysis of economic fallacies that are, at last, so prevalent that they have almost become a new orthodoxy. The one thing that has prevented this has been their own self-contradictions, which have scattered those who accept the same premises into 100 different schools, for the simple reason that it is impossible in matters touching practical life to be consistently wrong. But the difference between one new school and another is merely that one group wakes up earlier than another to the absurdities to which its false premises are driving it, and becomes, at that moment, inconsistent by either unwittingly abandoning its false premises or accepting conclusions from them less disturbing or fantastic than those that logic would demand. There is not a major government in the world at this moment, however, whose economic policies are not influenced, if they are not also almost wholly determined by acceptance of some of these fallacies. Perhaps the shortest and surest way to an understanding of economics is through a dissection of such errors, and particularly of the central error from which they stem. That is the assumption of this volume and of its somewhat ambitious and belligerent title. The volume is therefore primarily one of exposition. It makes no claim to originality with regard to any of the chief ideas that it expounds. Rather, its effort is to show that many of the ideas which now pass for brilliant innovations and advances are in fact mere revivals of ancient errors, and a further proof of the dictum that those who are ignorant of the past are condemned to repeat it. The present essay itself is, I suppose, unblushingly classical, traditional, and orthodox. At least these are the epitaphs with which those whose sophisms are here subjected to analysis will no doubt attempt to dismiss it. But the student whose aim is to attain as much truth as possible will not be frightened by such adjectives. He will not be forever seeking a revolution, a fresh start in economic thought. His mind will, of course, be as receptive to new ideas as to old ones, but he will be content to put aside merely restless or exhibitionist straining for novelty and originality. As Morris R. Cohen has remarked, the notion that we can dismiss the views of all previous thinkers surely leaves no basis for the hope that our own work will prove of any value to others. Because this is a work of exposition, I have availed myself freely and without detailed acknowledgement of the ideas of others. This is inevitable when one writes in a field in which many of the world's finest minds have laboured. But my indebtedness to at least 3 writers is of so specific a nature that I cannot allow it to pass unmentioned. My greatest debt with respect to the kind of expositionary framework on which the present argument is hung is to Frédéric Bastiat's essay, now nearly a century old. I am not even going to bother trying to pronounce that. The present work may in fact be regarded as a modernization, extension, and generalization of the approach found in Bastiat's pamphlet. My second debt is to Philip Wicksteed. In particular, the chapters on wages and the final summary chapter owe much to his common sense of political economy. My third debt is to Ludwig von Mises. Passing over everything that this elementary treatise may owe to his writings in general, my most specific debt is to his exposition of the manner of which the process of monetary inflation is spread. When analysing fallacies, I have thought it still less advisable to mention particular names than in giving credit. To do so would have required special justice to each writer criticised, with exact quotations, account taken of the particular emphasis he places on this point, or the qualifications he makes, his personal ambiguities, inconsistencies, and so on. I hope, therefore, that no one will be too disappointed at the absence of such names as Karl Marx, Thorstein Veblen, Major Douglas, Lord Keyes, Professor Alvin Hansen, and others in these pages. The object of this book is not to expose the special errors of particular writers, but economic errors in their most frequent, widespread, or influential form. Fallacies, when they have reached the popular stage, become anonymous anyway. The subtleties or obscurities to be found in the authors most responsible for propagating them are washed off. The doctrine becomes simplified. The sophism that may have been buried in a network of qualifications, ambiguities, or mathematical equations stands clear. I hope I shall not be accused of injustice on the ground, therefore, that a fashionable doctrine in the form in which I presented it is not precisely the doctrine as it has been formulated by Lord Keyes or some other special author. It is the beliefs which politically influential groups hold and which governments act upon that we are interested in here, not the historical origins of these beliefs. Let me look back at chat for a second. I need a drink too. One second, I'm being pinged. Might be worth covering before the stream ends. Oh, that's interesting. Something from Stone Toss. I just feel like noting as well that after I'm done with this, I will probably be making these into YouTube videos as well. I will be doing some dictation of this, but this is like my version with commentary as well. I hope finally that I shall be forgiven for making such rare reference to statistics in the following pages. To have tried to present statistical confirmation in referring to the effects of tariffs, price fixing, inflation, and the controls over which such commodities as coal, rubber, and cotton would have spawned this book much beyond the dimensions contemplated. As a working newspaper man, moreover, I am acutely aware of how quickly statistics become out of date and are superseded by later figures. Those who are interested in specific economic problems are advised to read current realistic discussions of them with statistical documentation. They will not find it difficult to interpret the statistics correctly in the light of the basic principles they have learned, and this is a very good point that he makes. That basically he's saying that if you do not have a full understanding of what the statistics mean, then you will be able to torture a p-value into any state that you want. I have tried to write this book as simply and with as much freedom from technicalities as is consistent with reasonable accuracy, so that it can be fully understood by a reader with no previous acquaintance of economics. While this book was comprised as a unit, 3 chapters have already appeared as separate articles, and I wish to thank the New York Times, the American Scholar, and the New Leader for permission to reprint material originally published in their pages. I am grateful to Professor von Mises for reading the manuscript and for helpful suggestions. Responsibility for the opinions expressed is, of course, entirely my own. This is Henry Hazlitt, New York, March 25, 1946. So yeah, he was active during the war years, so he has a lot of basis for background, and he also saw the upcoming to the First World War, and also Weimar and all of that nonsense, and the Great Depression. One second, please. Yep, this isn't too long, so I can read the rest of this. And I also love his dictation and all the way that he reads this stuff. Oh dear, I'm going to cough for a second. There we go. Economics is haunted by more fallacies than any other study known to man. This is no accident. The inherent difficulties of the subject would be great enough in any case, but they are multiplied 1,000-fold by a factor that is insignificant in, say, physics, mathematics, or medicine, the special pleading of selfish interests. While every group has certain economic interests identical with those of all groups, every group has also, as we shall see, interests antagonistic to those of all other groups. While certain public policies would in the long run benefit everybody, other policies would benefit one group only at the expense of all other groups. The group that would benefit by such policies, having such a direct interest in them, will argue for them plausibly and persistently. It will hire the best viable minds to devote their whole time to presenting its case. And it will finally either convince the general public that its case is sound, or so befuddle it that clear thinking on the subject becomes next to impossible. Can you immediately see how somebody writing in the 1940s can have incredible relevancy to the kind of thing that we have just written about Dear Beloved Don McGowan and Sweet Baby Inc.? Notice here especially, it is to befuddle the issue so that clear thinking on the subject becomes next to impossible. Look at the way that SBI and all those groups have regarded Gamergate and all of this stuff. They befuddle you. They say, "Oh no, don't believe your lying eyes. Don't believe them when they say these things, because making a Steam group is 100% harassment and there are death threats against us. You have to believe us." Because they don't have a plausible argument. So what they do is they go to befuddle you. It's a shame they don't even teach the basics of economics to kids anymore. Yeah, there's a reason for that. There is a reason, but that's getting a bit too deep into things. In addition to these endless pleadings of self-interest, there is a secondary main factor that spawns new economic fallacies every day. This is the persistent tendency of men to see only the immediate effects of a given policy, or its effects only on a special group, and to neglect to inquire what the long-run effects of that policy will be, not only on that special group, but on all groups. It is the fallacy of overlooked secondary consequences. In this lies almost the whole difference between good economics and bad. The bad economist sees only what immediately strikes the eye. The good economist also looks beyond. The bad economist sees only the direct consequences of a proposed course. The good economist looks also at the longer and indirect consequences. The bad economist sees only what the effect of a given policy has been or will be on one particular group. The good economist inquires also what the effect of the policy will be on all groups. So here we see a very consistent and important theme. And this is repeated in Thomas Sowell's Applied Economics, Thinking Beyond First the Initial Consequences, I believe is the title. And this is a great fallacy that all of these woke individuals see, is that they believe that all of their policies must affect specific minorities, and that it is in some way an evil action to look at the broader consequences of these actions. So they repeatedly commit these fallacies, is they say, we have to look out for the special interests of this group, let's say black people, or trans people, or bisexual people, or whatever else you want to say. And so they go about implementing policies that they think will favor these groups. But what they constantly do is forget the secondary consequences and the long-term consequences. And when those long-term consequences come knocking, they all go, you people are racist, and you people are evil, and you people are awful because you are attacking us for something we did good. And that is the problem, is that even the true believers don't understand the consequences of their own actions. They don't understand that when they commit these actions that they think will benefit themselves, they are in fact denying themselves gains. They're denying themselves. It's like a lot of people were saying in response to all this Sweet Baby Inc. stuff, that before diversity and inclusion were a big thing in the gaming industry, there were many games that were being naturally produced that had diverse and inclusive casts. There were black people, there were gay people, there were different races, there were different ethnicities. There was not trans people very much, but I mean, even like Persona and Catherine and so on had references to trans people, but they were negative references, so obviously they're not trans, they're something different, or they have to be erased because, you know, I can't even get into that nonsense, but... And now you see, the moment that they have, well, not the moment, but from the time period that woke ideology has attempted to co-opt the gaming space, they have now created an intense backlash towards even the idea of diversity in gaming, to the point where a game having a diverse cast of any sort will get it immediately and unthinkingly branded as a woke game that should be ignored. Whereas there are, in fact, games with diverse casts and interesting, unique characters who don't actually have any connection with woke ideology, or at the very least such a tangential connection that it doesn't overtly affect the narrative or the kind of story they're trying to tell, because guess what? It can be very fun and interesting to create a game with diverse characters, because that legitimately allows you to have different perspectives and different storytelling opportunities. It's sometimes very interesting to see the perspective of a black character in a video game, especially if it's, say, a period piece, like, say, the 1800s, or it's a fantasy Victorian setting with black characters, where slavery would still legitimately be a thing, possibly. That kind of thing is an interesting narrative device to explore. But once you have poisoned the well with so much forced diversity, the secondary and long-term consequences of your actions, which is exactly what Henry Hazlitt is describing here, come home to roost, because you poison the well. And you can't escape these consequences, and the bad economists, instead of confronting the reality of what they've done, are just going, no, you're all evil, you're all racist, and we didn't design these games for you to begin with, so shut up and go away. Kind of like how Chase became trapped in one episode. Isn't that an episode that was banned in the West, actually? I forget. Gigadramon, the biggest fallacy of socialism and all things derived from it is that they think the world as a zero-sum game. In order for one group to benefit, it has to come at the expense of someone else. I mean, I would actually say that you're kind of wrong there, because in a way, economics, that's actually kind of what economics is. It's just like Thomas Sowell says, that economics is the allocation of scarce resources that have alternate uses. Because economics is much like physics. In physics, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. And also, in physics, everything is subject to certain laws, particularly the laws of thermodynamics, and particularly the laws of entropy. The law of entropy states that an object will lose energy the longer when it progresses through time. That's why heat transfers from a hot object to the atmosphere and becomes diffused. And economics has the same principles. It is an energy science. Economics is an energy science because it is dealing with quantifiable assets that have a variety of uses. And if you are ever in a position where you have so much of a resource that you don't need to worry about its allocation, then it's no longer economics. You have reached a post-scarcity economic state where you no longer have to worry about this. But the fact is, everything is in some way limited. Even a decision as simple as looking at one tweet over another means that you have decided that you are going to alter another person's metrics by, say, one tweet or by, say, one view or one like, which in turn has knock-on consequences. Well, yeah, when you scroll far enough out, the entire universe is a closed system, but economies aren't perfectly closed, and you can add new energy to the system. I mean, yeah, that's true. I understand more what you're talking about there. I apologize for slightly misunderstanding your context, but yeah, it is very important to remember that economics is an energy system, and that it is anything that you do in an economic system will have consequences, and you cannot avoid those consequences. All you can do is defer those consequences, but at some point, to someone, those consequences will happen. It is as concrete as a law of physics. The only difference between the physics of economics and the physics of physics is that the reactions to economics is less obvious than the reactions of physics, which is why you have all of these groups that think that, oh, I've discovered an infinite money glitch, or oh, I've discovered a way to manipulate the economy to make loads of money, and nobody, it's never going to come back on my head. We've made more product, and it's just going to work this time. We swear, guys, but it doesn't. Because the consequences are deferred enough for them to believe it themselves. Because these people can often very legitimately think that what they are doing will succeed because they see the short-term benefits or even the medium-term benefits. But the long-term benefits will always come home to roost sooner or later. Anyway, let me have a drink. The distinction may seem obvious. The precaution of looking for all the consequences of a given policy to everyone may seem elementary. Doesn't everybody know, in his personal life, that there are all sorts of indulgencies delightful at the moment but disastrous in the end? Doesn't every little boy know that if he eats enough candy he will get sick? Doesn't the fellow who gets drunk know that he will wake up the next morning with a ghastly stomach and a horrible head? Doesn't the dipsomniac know that he is ruining his liver and shortening his life? Doesn't the Don Juan know that he is letting himself in for every sort of risk, from blackmail to disease? Finally, to bring it to the economic though still personal realm, do not the idler and the spendthrift know, even in the midst of their glorious fling, that they are heading for a future of debt and poverty? Yet, when we enter the field of public economics, these elementary truths are ignored. There are men regarded today as brilliant economists who deprecate saving and recommend squandering on a national scale as the way of economic salvation in the long term. I think I just disconnected for a second. If I missed anything then, OBS just said it disconnected and reconnected. I will continue anyway to the end of the paragraph. I will just go back a sentence or two, actually. There are men regarded today as brilliant economists who deprecate saving and recommend squandering on the national scale as the way of economic salvation. And when anyone points to what the consequences of those policies will be in the long run, they reply flippantly, as might the prodigal son of a warning father, In the long run, we will all be dead. And such shallow wisecracks pass as devastating epigrams and the ripest wisdom. Let me look back and make sure I didn't lose anything then. And more importantly, entropy is the motivation of Q-based evil, the 21st century's greatest work, Monica Magica. I mean, you're not wrong. While I agree with Austrian economics overall, I feel they fall short in being too materialistic and willing to accept usury as a fine thing. Usually don't like economic intervention, but goddamn bankers. Yeah, Proctor now in 1080p. I mean, what do you mean CBM now in 1080p? Wasn't I always in 1080p? I'm not sure what you mean. Gigadramon 6, I think you missed a comment I made earlier. They aren't ignorant of the negative consequences of their policies. They want those negative effects because of the zero-sum viewpoint. Okay, that makes a bit more sense. That does make a bit more sense. And I do see more what you mean there. I do see what you mean. But the tragedy is that, on the contrary, we are already suffering the long-run consequences of the policies of the remote or recent past. Today is already the tomorrow, which the bad economist yesterday urged us to ignore. The long-run consequences of some economic policies may become evident in a few months. Others may not become evident for several years. Still others may not become evident for decades. But in every case, those long-run consequences are contained in the policy as surely as the hen was in the egg, the flower in the seed. From this aspect, therefore, the whole of economics can be reduced to a single lesson, and that lesson can be reduced to a single sentence. The art of economics consists in looking not merely at the immediate, but at the longer effects of any act or policy. It consists in tracing the consequences of that policy, not merely for one group, but for all groups. 9/10 of the economic fallacies that are working such dreadful harm in the world today are the result of ignoring this lesson. Those fallacies all stem from one of two central fallacies, or both. That of looking only at the immediate consequences of an act or proposal, and that of looking at the consequences only for a particular group to the neglect of other groups, aka trans, gay, black, diverse, etc. It is true, of course, that the opposite error is possible. In considering a policy, we ought not to concentrate only on its long-run results to the community as a whole. This is the error often made by the classical economists. It resulted in a certain callousness towards the fate of groups that were immediately hurt by policies or developments which proved to be beneficial on net balance and in the long run. And I think, let me look back at chat for a second. Magdalenus Rex, I think this references what you were talking about. I think that he is talking here about those Austrian economists. Because what I like about Henry Hazlitt is that he does acknowledge one of the things that I dislike a lot about economic theory, in that he understands the moral quandaries presented by economics. And Thomas Sowell is this to a certain extent. One of the problems that I do have with Thomas Sowell is that he doesn't really factor in the influence of the internet, because he's pre-internet times. And I mean, Henry Hazlitt, of course, was pre-internet. There's no doubt about it, because, 1946. But I feel that he has a very good grasp of how economics is not just a physical science. It is also a moral science, and he encourages you to look at the long-term consequences as well as the short-term consequences in ways that make it easier to understand both the economic harm inflicted in the short or long term on a group, but also the emotional and moral harm, because in a way, morality and emotion are also commodities within an economic system, and you can quantify those in certain ways. And that is a very dangerous thing. I think it's a reason why the dismal science moniker applies to economics an awful lot, because it is very easy to become the human resources guy. The guy who says, by firing this person, they will be miserable, but 3 other people will be happy, which makes it a good thing to do. Whereas you can't really do that. You have to, if you want to stay, I would say, a morally culpable being, you have to properly balance both your own moral instincts and the economic consequences of your action. Yeah, that's the dirty secret of economics, is that it isn't just an energy science, but it's also philosophical. I would agree with you there exactly. You have to have a good philosophy to be an economist as well. You have to have a good moral philosophy. And it's why I think that the best economists are all religious economists, because they understand that their actions have consequences, not just for the economy they're working for, but also for their record with a certain divine entity that had very strong words to say about various economic practices. I really need to do a stream about the Mosaic Law someday. That would be really fun. Anyway, let's continue. But comparatively few people today make this error, and those few consist mainly of professional economists. The most frequent fallacy by far today, the fallacy that emerges again and again in nearly every conversation that touches on economic affairs, the error of 1,000 political speeches, and central sophism of the new economics, is to concentrate on the short-run effects of policies on special groups and to ignore or belittle the long-run effects on the community as a whole. The new economists flatter themselves that this is a great, almost a revolutionary advance over the methods of the classical or orthodox economists, because the former take into consideration short-run effects which the latter often ignored. But in themselves ignoring or slighting the long-run effects, they are making the far more serious error. They overlook the woods in their precise and minute examination of particular trees. Their methods and conclusions are often profoundly reactionary. They are sometimes surprised to find themselves in accord with 17th century mercantilism. They fall, in fact, into all the ancient errors that the classical economists we had hoped had once and for all got rid of. And here I think Gigadramon 6 is a very good point to you as well when you were calling socialists zero-sum game economists, because mercantilism basically was a zero-sum game, because mercantilism as its central premise, as I recall, I have not looked up mercantilism in a long time, I apologize if I've gotten anything wrong, is that basically the best way to run an economy is to be as self-sufficient as possible, to export as much as possible while importing as little as possible. Or rather, I think maybe the other way around. I forget. Again, it's been a long time since I have looked at mercantilism. But basically, the idea was to have as much yourself while giving your opponent as little as possible. Because mercantilism was at a time when the European states were very much were not in cooperation. They were trying to economically wage war as much as they were physically wage war. They didn't want to give any of their opponents anything like export duties, so that their opponents would not benefit from the things that they were making. Basically, every country wanted as much gold, silver, or precious materials as possible, and it was import as little as possible, export as much as possible. Thank you. Basically, get as much money as possible and then just sit on it, or at least use it in ways that exclusively favored your own country. Mercantilism is extremely protectionist. Yes, yep. I'm glad I got that right. I do. Again, I am very autistic, so it is easy for me to get those kind of things mixed up. So please feel free to correct me if I do mess up in that regard, because again, I am trying to be as factual as possible here. And it's ironic because, and yeah, these people, these modern economists, are operating like mercantilists because. Especially when you look at the diversity people, because they're basically saying, I want to get everything as possible, as much as possible for my own particular group that I favor, and I want to export the values of my group as much as possible to other places, whereas I want to import the values of other groups as little as possible, which means disregarding conventional economic wisdom. So they are doing on a philosophical level what the economists, what Henry Hazlitt is accusing the economists of doing. And of course, they're also applying that into the idea of economics as well. Those few of them who understand economics enough to even have a position aside from capitalism bad, socialism good, end the structure of the thing that gives me money. Those are definitely the useful idiots rather than the high-level true believers. Imagine not putting the Starlink logo to not get that sponsorship. Does Starlink even offer sponsorships? I'm not even... It is often sadly remarked that the bad economists present their errors to the public better than the good economists present their truths. Yes, we'll get back. We'll get back to this. It is often complained that demagogues can be more plausible in putting forward economic nonsense from the platform than the honest man who try to show what is wrong with it. But the basic reason for this ought not to be mysterious. The reason that the demagogues and bad economists are presenting half-truths. They are speaking only of the immediate effect of a proposed policy or its effect upon a single group. As far as they go, they may often be right. In these cases, the answer consists in showing that the proposed policy would also have longer and less desirable effects, or that it could benefit one group only at the expense of all other groups. The answer consists in supplementing and correcting the half-truth with the other. But to consider all the chief effects of a proposed course of everybody often requires a long, complicated, and dull chain of reasoning. Most of the audience finds this chain of reasoning difficult to follow and soon becomes bored and inattentive. This literally describes the Twitter audience. Remember, this was written in 1946. The bad economists rationalize this intellectual debility and laziness by assuring the audience that it need not even attempt to follow the reasoning or judge it on its merits, because it is only classism, or laissez-faire, or capitalist apologetics, or whatever other term of abuse might happen to strike them as effective. I wonder what other terms we can use to replace these three. I wonder. We have stated the nature of the lesson and of the fallacies that stand in its way in abstract terms, but the lesson will not be driven home and the fallacies will continue to go unrecognized unless both are illustrated by examples. Through these examples, we can move from the most elementary problems in economics to the most complex and difficult. Through them, we can learn to detect and avoid first the crudest and most palpable fallacies, and finally some of the most sophisticated and elusive. To that task, we shall now proceed, but we will not, because I'm only reading one chapter a stream. But I mean, look at this. There is so much timeless wisdom in this particular paragraph. Hence, this is the issue with democracy. Yeah, Magdalena's Rex. TLDR, it takes far more effort to clean up human excrement out of shag carpeting than it does to drop your pants and crap on the floor. I agree. And this is the whole thing as well, like a lie can travel twice around the world before the truth even gets its pants on. And somebody higher up I think it was Magdalena's Rex actually, was saying that it's such a shame that economics is not taught in schools any longer. And to bring the conspiracy theory out into the open, although, as we all know, the difference between a conspiracy theory and reality is 6 months. One of the primary reasons that economic theory, like Henry Hazlitt's, is not taught in schools any longer is because it was designed to give people the ability to refute the arguments of people like the Twitter freaks and the insane people. In that there has been a concerted effort over the last 100 years, and you can see it in all forms across multiple continents, to disempower the public so that people no longer have the tools and the equipment to refute the nonsense that they see in their day-to-day lives. And this is why books like Basic Economics are so important. They removed classical liberal triumvirum in place of Prussian educations that teaches people to be good soldier factory workers, but now our army is gay and the Chinese and Indians have our factories. Vaush only exists because his audience is extremely poorly educated on moral, philosophical, and economic matters. Yeah, and this is why I enjoy it so much when people like Glenn Greenwald, who is a very classically trained guy with an incredibly good pedigree in terms of intellectual and philosophical knowledge, I enjoy it so much when he goes after people like Destiny. Like, I would say that the two debates, the one on Zero Hedge and the private one that Glenn Greenwald had that included Destiny, are encapsulating of the difference between people who are truly educated and people who are not. Because Glenn Greenwald is able to obliterate Destiny on multiple fronts constantly. They're not really arguing about economics, but they are arguing about both philosophy, they are arguing about politics, and so on. And Glenn Greenwald can just destroy Destiny within 5 seconds, and you can tell that Destiny has like so many tabs open to different articles in all of his nonsense, and he just can't keep up with Glenn Greenwald on any front at all. And it's beautiful to watch. And this is why I encourage people to read and understand works like Henry Hazlitt's, because it can be incredibly disappointing and miserable to try and talk to the Twitter freaks, because you can say things that you know are correct, you know in your heart are correct, but they will pull out some little bit of sophistry, or they will pull out some little thing that you realize has reframed the narrative in a way that you still know is wrong, but has twisted your commentary into something that makes people who are on the fence think that now the person who has just refuted your argument is the one who is correct. And you can't fight them because you don't quite understand. You know what they've done, but you don't quite have the knowledge with which to expose and refute the way they've twisted your argument. But if you investigate things like this, if you read things like this book, if you read things like Thomas Sowell, if you watch people like Glenn Greenwald and understand the history of liberalism and so on, you're able to dig much deeper, and you're able to gain a far stronger intellectual platform with which to navigate the waters of the insanity that we are exposed to in the media, in politics, in economics, on Twitter, even when we're just talking to our friends who are mostly normies, who are exposed to these kind of things in their day-to-day life, and like casually internalize these concepts. It will make you enemies. It will make you a lot of enemies, and it will turn people against you because they will experience a lot of cognitive dissonance from what you are saying to them. And yet, ultimately, you will be shocked and astonished on how easy it is, on how a little knowledge goes a long way. A very low, because the level of discourse, I need another drink. The level of public discourse at this point in time is so degraded and so useless and so pathetic that the kind of people who now are held up as true intellectuals, as geniuses, as people who you must watch in order to understand the modern world are idiots. They are complete and total morons with just enough knowledge of sophistry to dismantle slightly more comprehensive and informed arguments than themselves. Yeah, sophistry is super difficult to deal with. I argue with gun control advocates a lot, so I've spent a lot of time figuring out counter-arguments to their sophistry, but it's hard. I agree with you. I mean, what you do for gun control, I do for things like immigration and religion to a degree as well. It is hard. It is very hard, but there is a satisfaction to it. And it gets easier as your knowledge base expands, because a lot of the Twitter freaks and so on have no cards to play aside from the screaming and the shrieking. And the thing is that regardless of how sincere or how empowered and how confident they may seem, they are operating in an echo chamber that they cannot deal without the presence of. And the moment you draw them into an argument that they have no refutation from, they completely disintegrate and fall to pieces. The father of a lot of Gnostic heretics was a man named Simon Magus, who it was in Acts, and the apostles called out his sophistry and bribery. That's where the woke get their ideas from. Yeah, I know that too. That's a pretty good example as well. I haven't actually looked at that in a long time, but I know exactly who you're talking about. And I also remember in 3rd John, where John writes to the congregations and he says, "There are those among you who receive nothing that I write to you with respect." Which I feel really sad. I really do feel sad for that poor man. He was over 100 when he wrote that. But yeah, a lot of this stuff has deep roots in also the philosophy of the Greeks and the Romans and all that nonsense. Treat them like blue archive sensais, keep tourist freaks, laugh and ignore. I do agree. Again, let me just emphasize very, 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 very thoroughly. Okay, let me just put that on screen so that it's very clear what I'm doing. Make it a tiny bit smaller. And go back to just chatting because we finished this chapter. And then I realized that I can't actually do that. So yeah, I am not advocating that you argue incessantly with insane Twitter freaks. You have to pick and choose your battles. You have to be careful. You have to be reasonable as well. Let your reasonableness be made known to all. One of the most counter-arguments is to directly call them sophists. Sophistry relies pretty heavily on slipping things past the person you're arguing with. I agree too. I agree with that. You have to pick and choose your battles, and this kind of thing will exhaust you an awful lot. Your keyboard sounds like a bag of bones clattering. Yeah, it's about 12 years old. Literally just ignore what they say and say that's just sophistry. I'm not dignifying that nonsense. Yeah, you need to be able to understand when to pick and choose your battles. Absolutely. There's no question about that. And I suppose as we go further down these lessons, we'll understand that in a bit more detail. We'll be able to analyze this in more interesting terms. And I'm very happy with how things are, like picking a battle with a minor in that group. I mean, there's no evidence that they were a minor. But they were, I mean, I sincerely hope that a minor was not retweeting stuff talking about rape and all that kind of nonsense, okay? That's a level of parental neglect that I would really genuinely worry about. But anyway, we have come to a decent end point for this stream, because I can tell that my throat is starting to degrade a little bit. Doesn't help a lot of these crazy people can't tell difference between fiction and reality. I've seen some of them recoil like Dracula to the cross when told things like Harry Potter isn't real. I mean, yeah. Well, yeah, that's really the advantage. It is an advantage overall that we live in a society where the average person is a child. They are intellectual children. They have no knowledge of higher purposes. They have no purpose. They have no knowledge of higher causes. And so when a truly educated person takes off the gloves, it is a lion among sheep. It is a lion among disabled sheep. It is a lion among disabled sheep who call for a shepherd who then calls them enablers as his only response. You can't be afraid of these people. It's easy to let yourself get down. It's easy to be defeated. It's easy to feel as if you're doing nothing, if you're accomplishing nothing. But again, you have to pick your battles. You have to fight the causes that you know you're able to fight. Not go beyond what you're capable of. And if you are ever defeated, your response should not be like Ethan Ralph to say, "Oh no, I actually won, even though I shot at myself on stream. I'm still the badass." You need to go away and you need to think about what you did, and you need to research and read a bit more, and you will come back a stronger person. Whereas every time you defeat these people, every time you expose their sophistry, every time you make them freak out and delete and block and ban people and so on, you reveal to everyone how fragile, weak, and useless they actually are. And you have caused them a level of mental paralysis that they will never be able... You will live rent-free in their heads for years afterwards. Unironically, you will live rent-free in their heads. I had one guy I argued with face-to-face cave in after I called him... I'm reminded about the conversation I had with a co-worker of media in her time and media now. People back then were coming back from war and had real-life experience. Adults now are still kids. Precisely. And when I compare, I can't even talk about a lot of this stuff with my parents because they will go, "Why would anyone care about this?" And I understand that their attitude is how that is the attitude that everybody should have. Unfortunately, when people who are fully... This is the problem, is that there are people out there like Glenn Greenwald, who I will keep shilling because I think he is a very good person, who are fully equipped to fight the battles that we are fighting right now, or just dealing with the problems that we are dealing with right now, and yet they are in a different sphere of entertainment, not in entertainment, but intellectual and in terms of his age and so on. So he has no connection with the kind of people that are in Gamergate and so on. And we need... The thing that I think is so important is that we need to have a new generation of people like Glenn Greenwald who are educated and authoritative and who have done strong historical research, who have a strong background in how society works and how history works, who are able to take up that mantle when people like him get too old to have any relevancy in the modern scene. Because otherwise you will just have two echo chambers, one of which is the people who still are genuinely well-informed, who just talk to other people who are genuinely well-informed, and those people who have no information whatsoever, who will just talk at each other. And it doesn't matter on what side those people who have no information are, whether they are right, whether they are left, whether they are blue, green, brown, rainbow, etc. They will be easily led, regardless of whether they are right or left. Whereas it is the responsibility of every person to become a morally self-determining individual who has the ability to understand right from wrong, consequences from short-term consequences from long-term consequences. That, I feel, is the strongest responsibility any person has in this entire world. The major obstacle is that the establishing government wants tax revenue citizens who don't ask questions. I mean, that is completely true as well. You're not wrong. Thank you very much, Almond Glass Cannon. I do appreciate that endorsement. But my throat is starting to hurt quite badly, so I am not going to continue streaming at this point. I also need to go to the bathroom as well. I have a ton more stuff to talk about. I might try and stream sometime tomorrow afternoon or whenever, depending on how my throat goes, but back to just chatting. There we go. But I'm very, very happy to be back, and I am delighted with Starlink. Like, the way that Starlink has worked so far, I think I had one brief disconnect. Nobody even commented that my stream went down, so maybe my stream didn't even go down, but OBS did have about a 5-second period where it said, error, OBS has no signal, OBS has disconnected, error, disaster, it's terrible. But no, it reconnected itself perfectly fine, so... amazing. I am very happy with things. I did not think things would be this good. So yeah, ultimately, I think I have nothing really further to... Well, I have tons of things more to talk about, but I am going to take a break, I'm going to relax, and I'm going to have a drink and also something to eat. So I am very grateful to everybody who has been watching me. Thank you all so much for sticking with me. We heard you when you were talking about OBS going down. Okay, that's weird. That is weird, honestly. Weird how I don't know. This is so much techno heresy to me, honestly. Let me just try and find my live streaming tab. Here we are. So yes, thank you all for your time. I will see you maybe tomorrow, maybe weekend. Good night for now. Have fun.